Stephen, how are we today?
Hey, good. How are you?
New look, huh? I see the Steinway in the background. We got some banners around this. It's a new day, huh?
Yeah, it's looking much better.
All right. So today we are going to go over the Rev Engine Blueprint. What is the Rev Engine Blueprint? So this is a RevOps tool that we use to help customers understand exactly what it is going on currently with the revenue operations. Like we talked a couple weeks ago, like, hey, you've got more of a rev engine, you're doing more rev ops than you actually know that you're doing. And this starts defining different areas. So, Stephen, when we start working with customers and we really start diving into what their rev engine needs to be, I feel like most things start with like the goals and the vision. So, what are some of the right questions that we need to start asking to understand exactly where we're going and building this RevOps engine?
Yeah, I think for us, like it's always helpful to take a step back, take more of a holistic view, like not just focusing on just marketing or just sales. Like, yeah, we need to know like what those company goals are. Like every department has their own KPIs and it all kind of feeds into one another, but they all, there's company goals and there's department level goals. So for us to take more of a step back, like holistically look at it from a, marketing has these goals, sales has these goals, customer success has these goals. How do they feed into the company goals? And then based off of those company goals, we can start kind of, poking around like, what kind of tech stack are we using? Do we feel like there's any like inefficiencies in what we're using? Is there too much? Are we doing too many manual tasks that can be automated? Just really like starting from more of that kind of strength and structure approach, and like building out what it should, what is the end goal here, instead of just like jumping in and trying to like band-aid this and band-aid that, but a more holistic view at company goals, KPIs, and like where the tech stack needs to go.
Yeah, I think there's just these two different areas, right? There's operations, which again, you've got marketing operations, sales operations, customer success operations, and all of those need to be looked at and see how they're actually interacting with one another and what it takes to keep those aligned. But then there's the tech, right? Because this is the big difference nowadays, and this is why RevOps and RevOps agencies are becoming a thing because technology is there for it. The technology is there to help customer success, sales, and marketing teams all stay on the same page. And so I think operationally, we need to understand just how a company is working and who talks to who are the key stakeholders and on each team, and then understand what those goals are, but then take those and to be able to get them in the right tech stack. So what do you see as like the right balance between, operations and tech?
Yeah, I mean, operations and tech should always work hand in hand. And there's really, in this day and age, there's no reason for like to have silos and for like these different departments or different, tools not to be speaking to one another, whether it's a native integration or like an API integration. Like there's really just, there's no reason in today's environment that we shouldn't have all the different departments kind of aligned. They don't have to all be working out of the same system, but the systems at least need to be speaking to in one another, and when the systems speak to one another, it makes the ops side of the business run a lot smoother. And then it adds a lot of that, internal alignment that we've seen, that I mean, maybe haven't seen in the past when, marketing had their tool, sales had their tool, customer success had their tool, and then ops and finance probably working out of something else. And none of them really spoke to one another.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things though with the right tech stack, you can still have different teams in different softwares. I'm not sure. It just depends a little bit more on who the team is, but there's tons of customers we've worked with that use HubSpot for marketing, they use Salesforce for sales, and those two systems have to talk to each other. Okay. And those two systems talking to each other help with the alignment, right? Because marketing can create automation that tells sales, hey, this customer was looking at this page on our website. And like yesterday at 2 p.m., you might want to follow up and see what it is that's of interest to them. And those two systems can work together and get that customer intelligence, and it can get that information to the right people. But I do see the value as well as when they're all in the same system too. But as long as everything's talking to each other, that should be helpful for the customer to be able to understand what marketing needs to do, what sales needs to do based off consumer activity. Um, so once we look at somebody's operations, once we kind of audit and see how they're doing everything, we see what tech they're currently using and start creating maybe a better tech stack for them to use in the future. What do you think is the most imperative information that we need to really start being able to build out that perfect Rev Engine for a customer?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different elements. Definitely from like the ops perspective, like what do they need out of it? Like what are the internal, processes that that we need to know about to make sure that the tech stack, either the current one or a new tech stack, can handle that. And then it's really like, to me, like the biggest thing, especially with on the RevOps side, is like what is that marketing to sales to like customer success handoff process? Because when there's no alignment on that, like it doesn't matter what tech stack we put in, like there's always going to be issues internally with getting the systems to speak together in the correct manner. Teams having misalignment. So like really understanding, okay, from the marketing side, leads come in, like what's a quality lead? At what point does a lead get fixed from marketing to sales? What does that sales process look like? Is it a short process? Is it a long process? How much automation do we need in there to assist the sales reps, build out, nurture sequences, like really understanding like that full sales cycle. And then, okay, what happens like when the deal closes? We can automate kicking it over into whether it's, doesn't matter if it's HubSpot, a Zendesk, Service Cloud. Like, what does that look like? Who needs to be involved? What information does the customer success team need if they're doing more like onboarding implementation? So we're like diving into those internal processes, mapping all of that out in a lucid chart. So it's like it's visual, and every team sees it. All the key stakeholders sign off on it. Like this is going to be the process, like we live, breathe, and die by. And then it makes it much easier to implement that within whatever the chosen tech stack is.
And I think I want to touch on something you said there about the key stakeholders all signing off on that, because just because the tech works in a certain way doesn't mean that everybody's aligned. I was talking with one of our strategists this week, and we were talking about our champion over at on the customer side, who is in the marketing operations and oversees marketing operations. And we started talking about some of the reports that they were looking for. And the more I dove into it, it was like, well, part of the reports that they're looking for is the speed in which sales is reaching out to MQLs, turning them into SQLs. And the more I dove in, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Well, this is obviously a report that somebody wants, but I don't know that it's going to make sales look the best. And so like, if we're going to do these reports, if we are going to do this, are we still in that age old, tension between sales and marketing? Or are we harmoniously trying to bring these together? And it sounded like everything was a little bit more harmonious in this example. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty important that just because you have the tech, you've got to still be the operations and the spirit behind marketing and sales still has to be, we want to play together. Otherwise, you're paying a company like Attack to set a bunch of stuff up that both teams are going to try and use to sabotage one another. And then we've made zero progress.
100%. Unfortunately, use case we see too often, but like when that alignment is there, like it makes the whole process just run so smoothly. Which is like on our side, when we were doing these types of projects, like it doesn't make sense for us to do them in a silo with the client either. Like we can't just be running a RevOps project with just the marketing involvement. We need, someone from the sales side or a CRO, CSO, depending on who's kind of overseeing all of this to have that buy-in and to help with that internal user adoption.
Yeah, I think the whole point of the tech is to try to make whether it's department heads or people in sales ops, people in marketing ops, make them come together and become best friends, right? Like that's what we want. We want that stepbrothers moment, right? Do we just become best friends? That's what we want our tech to do, for these different revenue operations teams. And that's kind of why we've talked about this before. So many people just think RevOps, they think tech, right? HubSpot, Salesforce, Dynamics, whatever, and it's so much beyond that because the operations have to be aligned first before the tech even comes in. So, what else are we looking for when we're designing that Rev Engine for a company? Let's say we've got alignment, sales and marketing are on board. We work together, we get the right tech stack, and now everyone's getting the right information. We got the right reports. Now what do we have to do to make sure that, you know, marketing is sending solid leads, sales is closing as many as possible, then they're handing them off to customer success, and everybody's happy and they're renewing, and we've got low churn rates, and they're telling their friends, and it's just growth, growth, growth.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It does kind of vary by, I say, by the type of client. But like once we've got everything built, it's like, okay, how do we further optimize it? How do we make improvements to the process? Or we take a step back and we're like, okay, maybe the leads that are coming in from this source aren't the best quality, and so we make changes to that, or we invest more in a different in a different source. Or we see on the sales side, we can see that certain types of businesses or leads tend to, maybe stall more than others, and we can start really looking at lead scoring and using that. Once we got that base built out and we can really start driving more lead volume, then we can take a step back. Okay, build out more advanced lead scoring. Really help the sales team. Prioritize their day, because sales reps always want to hit the leads that are going to have the highest likelihood to close, and the ones that are lower priority are going to sit there. Okay, so what can we do to nurture them? So it's more of a, I'd say, streamlining, like optimization, and building in more like data hygiene reporting that we can then use to further optimize like the whole, marketing to sales cycle.
Yeah, and I think what you just said really is true, is that when we do this the right way and we get the operations and we put them in the right tech stack, what that unlocks is honest data. And that honest data helps us make accurate decisions across that entire customer journey, right? What's happening in the attract phase, what's going on in the convert phase, what's going on in the close phase, what's up with the delight phase. When you have all of the right information being tracked, that helps at each of those phases to make better decisions. So to me, the unity and the alignment, on the operations side, when it's matched with the technology, what that does is it gives you the freedom to start, making smarter decisions, because data is your driver, not intuition. And as we've seen, data is a much stronger force than a sample size of one and their beliefs. So I think that's a really cool kind of promised land for customers who engage and decide that they need to have a Rev Engine built, is that the promised land of all of this is that who's doing what, how it's performing, and you can make the right decisions to continue to optimize it so that it's giving you that growth that you're looking for. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for being here today and running down the Rev Engine Blueprint with me. And I look forward to having more of these conversations with you and talking more use cases as we continue to build more and more of these out for our customers. Thanks so much, Steven.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
That's it for today. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you can see our latest videos as soon as they drop. We really appreciate you watching. See you next time.